From the late 1960s, starting with the recording of their cult debut album, all the way to the mid-1970s and the release of Red, Robert Fripp's guitar tone was characterized by incredible density, a fluid and aggressive attack, and phenomenal singing sustain. During those years, he faced a formidable acoustic challenge. He needed to cut through a dense, mid-range heavy mix dominated by the mellotron and the incredibly tight, polyrhythmic, and chaotic drumming of Michael Giles or Bill Bruford. Fripp strove to make his electric guitar sound less like a typical plucked instrument with a sharp attack and more like a powerful brass instrument or a bowed cello. The foundation for solving this acoustic puzzle was his 1959 Gibson Les Paul Custom, widely known in the guitar world as the Black Beauty. This instrument was equipped with 3 humbuckers. The choice of this specific guitar was dictated purely by its physical and resonant properties. The massive mahogany body, paired with a thick maple top, provided colossal natural sustain. It was loaded with classic vintage PAF pickups. By modern standards, these pickups don't have an excessively high output, but they are phenomenally sensitive and react beautifully to playing dynamics. They don't compress the signal prematurely, allowing the guitarist to fully control the tonal character through the force of his pick attack. To amplify this instrument, Fripp relied on classic British stacks. The main workhorses on stage were the massive high-watt custom 100 amplifiers, alongside various early iterations of Marshall Plexi and JTM 45 amps. High-watt amplifiers were renowned for their specific circuitry and colossal clean headroom. This allowed the amp to remain pristine at ear-splitting volumes without collapsing when fed a fat, heavily distorted signal from a fuzz pedal. The stage volumes during that era were pushed to the absolute limit. This wasn't done to deafen the audience, but strictly to achieve controlled acoustic feedback. The sound waves and air pressure blasting from the 4x12 cabinets physically vibrated the guitar strings, driving them into infinite sustain. The main secret to shaping his tone during those years was a combination of 2 simple pedals on the floor. The first was a rare British fuzz pedal from the late 1960s, the Burns Buzz-Around, built on germanium transistors. Unlike the ubiquitous fuzz face of the time, this pedal featured a completely different tone circuit that yielded a highly focused, nasal, and mix-cutting sound. Germanium transistors are notoriously temperamental electronic components. Their operating characteristics fluctuate heavily with ambient temperature, but they react fantastically to changes in the guitar's volume knob. Fripp could roll back the volume on his Les Paul to get a nearly clean sound and crank it to max to make the guitar scream ferociously. The second crucial pillar of Fripp's unique technique was a standard volume pedal. The guitarist would pick the note with the volume pedal rolled all the way down, and then smoothly swell the volume up with his foot. This physically eliminated the sharp transient of the pick attack, making it soft. Combined with the heavy fuzz and a roaring cranked amplifier, this technique allowed the electric guitar to sound incredibly smooth, much like a bowed string instrument. Following the dissolution of King Crimson in 1974, Robert Fripp moved to New York, where he began actively working with Brian Eno and David Bowie. It was during this period that a system was formed which would forever change his sound. This system was a method of creating analog tape loops, conceived by Eno and perfected by Fripp to an absolute ideal. There were no digital processors back then. The technical implementation required heavy hardware. 2 Revox A77, or later B77, reel-to-reel tape machines. The physics of the process involved threading the magnetic tape so that it exited the first machine, where the signal was recorded, and fed into the second machine, where it was played back. The physical distance between the 2 machines and the tape speed strictly dictated the delay time. The played-back signal from the second machine was mixed back into the input of the first. This allowed Fripp to layer guitar chords and complex solos over each other in real time. In doing so, the laws of magnetic tape physics came into play. With every new cycle of re-recording, the tape inevitably degraded, high frequencies were rolled off, natural tape hiss emerged, and magnetic saturation occurred. All these artifacts created an inimitable, hypnotic, and dark soundscape. A prime example of his virtuosic work with acoustic space and feedback from that era is the recording of the famous guitar solo in David Bowie's Heroes. During the session, Fripp plugged his Les Paul into a Marshall amp. Brian Eno marked specific spots on the studio floor with tape. The idea was that different notes on the fretboard would resonate and feed back at varying physical distances from the cabinet due to the different wavelengths of sound in the air. Fripp literally walked around the studio with his guitar, stepping onto the exact marks to achieve perfectly controlled singing feedback for specific notes. It was pure physical interaction between the electric guitar and a massive amplifier, with no electronic sustainers or processors involved. In 1981, King Crimson returned with a new lineup featuring Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, and Bill Bruford. The music became entirely different, polyrhythmic, mathematically precise, and inspired by Indonesian gamelan and minimalism. The sound of a dirty fuzz pedal was completely out of place here. Fripp's tone became prickly, crystal clear, percussive, and highly articulate. This was necessary for playing complex rhythmic patterns using a cross-picking technique, where every single note had to sound perfectly even and ruthless, like a programmed sequencer. During this period, his main instruments were the Japanese Roland G303 and G808 guitars. These weren't just guitars, they were controllers for guitar synthesizers manufactured in Japan by Fujigen. They were equipped with a special hexaphonic pickup that isolated the signal from each string individually. This signal controlled the iconic polyphonic analog guitar synthesizer, the Roland GR300. Fripp used it to generate thick brass or string pads, which he masterfully layered over the clean guitar tone. The massive tube stacks were replaced by the Japanese transistor Roland JC120 Jazz Chorus amplifier, the undisputed king of clean tones in the 1980s.
The choice of transistor circuitry was simple. Any tube amp introduces slight compression and saturation, even on the clean channel, but Fripp needed absolute surgical precision and sterility. Furthermore, the transistor amp reproduced the frequency range of the guitar synthesizer much more evenly. This combo amp also featured a built-in stereo chorus, which became the true calling card of the band's sound during those years. Additionally, Fripp started using early digital delays to create complex rhythmic shifts and polymeters. By the early 1990s, Robert Fripp radically changed his approach to the instrument itself. He introduced a new standard tuning, abbreviated as NST. Instead of the classic guitar tuning built in fourths, Fripp tuned his guitar in fifths, like a violin or a cello, with the exception of the top string.
This radically expanded the instrument's range, making the guitar sound wider and forcing chords to be played with broader intervals, yielding a more open, piano-like resonance. This tuning created a serious technical problem, as a standard set of strings wouldn't work. On a standard scale length, the lowest string would be too floppy due to lack of tension, while the highest string would simply snap from the extreme tension. Fripp had to order custom string sets with extreme gauges, ranging from 0.011 to 0.052 or 0.056, featuring a very thin first string. Concurrently, the analog tape machine system evolved into the digital realm. The heavy, temperamental Revox machines, with their constantly breaking tapes, became a thing of the past. Fripp transitioned to digital, and a new term was born: Soundscapes. The core of this new system was the TC Electronic 2290 Studio Digital Delay, prized for its crystal clear audio quality and massive delay times. It was paired with rack mount monsters like the Eventide harmonizers, first the H3000 and later the H8000, which cost as much as a decent car. These units allowed for pitch shifting without delay, creating cathedral-sized reverbs and generating highly complex harmonic layers. Fripp used them to craft those endless, evolving pads that traditionally played before the band's concerts. From the 2000s right up to the final tours that concluded in 2021, Fripp's approach to tone became highly technological. The heavy vintage guitars were put on the shelf, and his main workhorses became Les Paul-shaped guitars with entirely different internals. First, these were production Fernandez models, and later custom guitars from luthier Ben Crow at Crimson Guitars. The main feature of these guitars was the Fernandez Sustainer electronic system, providing infinite sustain. This technology freed Fripp from having to stand in front of a roaring stack to get feedback.
He could play his soundscapes sitting on a stool at a comfortable volume, getting endless, smooth sustain on a fundamental note or harmonics. Fripp also actively used Roland VG8 and later VG99 guitar processors, working with the polyphonic GK pickup. This modeling technology allowed him to change the guitar's tuning digitally on the fly and simulate various acoustic instruments or synthesizers. In the final stage of touring, Fripp transitioned entirely to top-tier digital guitar processors. His rack was populated by Fractal Audio Axe-Fx units, versions 2 and 3, and the Kemper Profiler. Using rack processors completely eliminated the need to transport giant cabinets of analog gear. Fractal audio processors feature a phenomenal routing matrix, allowing Fripp to build highly complex chains.
The guitar signal was split into independent paths. One path went into a clean amp simulation for rhythm parts. A second path went through a heavy distortion block for lead lines. And a third path was sent to complex pitch shifting and massive reverb blocks for background soundscapes. This entire colossal computing complex was controlled via MIDI from a floor pedal board, ensuring instant switching of highly complex presets without the slightest latency or audio artifacts. If we distill this long evolution down to a single denominator, it's clear that Robert Fripp was never a slave to his gear. All those pedals, guitars, and processors were always strictly subservient to his current musical concept. When he needed to cut through the sonic chaos of the early 1970s, he grabbed a germanium fuzz pedal and cranked a tube stack to the limit. When he wanted to create multi-layered sound textures in real time, he developed the tape loop system. As soon as he needed surgical precision and clarity for polyrhythmic structures, he unhesitatingly switched to transistor amps and analog synthesizers. When the need arose for infinite sustain without destroying his hearing on stage, he installed electromagnetic systems in his guitars. And when the modern industry demanded total independence and predictability on tour, he elegantly packed all his cosmic requirements into cutting-edge digital units. There is no room for accidents in his sound because every played note, every digital delay tail, and every harmonic from the magnetic sustainer is part of a strict mathematical calculation that transforms into truly monumental sound art on stage. What do you think about Robert Fripp's guitar tone? Let me know in the comments.